Hi, everyone. So my name is Meab Corcoran, and I am the director of Accenture Labs in Ireland. It's basically our research and development centre, and we focus on artificial intelligence, or AI as it's called, and developing prototypes and pilots in that area. And today, I'm going to talk to you about how a career in STEM, and specifically AI and analytics, can help you have a positive impact on society. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact when you don't have diversity in areas where STEM is being developed. Then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the research that's been mentioned that we've done in you guys around why a lot of girls don't pick STEM subjects and what we can do about it. I'm going to give you some examples then, concrete examples of careers in STEM that are making a difference to society. And then I'm going to introduce you to a few young women that I work with who have careers in STEM, and they'll tell you about their experience. The first picture there, you may not realize it, but up until a few years ago, in the automotive industry, nearly all of the crash test dummies used to test cars were basically built on the size of a standard male. It was only for 30 years that went on, and it's only in the past few years that it's become a legal requirement to have diversity in the types of crash test dummies. There was a study done in 2011, and women are nearly 50% more likely to get an injury for the same impact crash as a man. And for smaller women, some of the tests showed their fatality rate was 3 times higher than men. If a woman had been in charge in one of those companies or involved in the testing process, hopefully the need for diversity in the crash test dummies would have been picked up. On the right here, this is Joy. She's a researcher at MIT Media Labs in the States, and she published last year a paper looking at facial recognition algorithms and the accuracy of predicting gender. And what she found was, for white males, it was 99% accurate, and for black females, it fell to 65%, and sometimes for black females, it didn't even register them as humans. And the reason AI was more accurate on the males was because it was trained that way. One of the main data sets that they use was 75% male and 80% white. So, I mean, when you think about the implications for driverless cars, where they're controlled by computer vision, and the computer vision actually is much more likely to recognize a white male crossing the street than a black female in front of them, you can see why the need for diversity in STEM is actually a matter of life and death. So just a little bit on the research that the people in IWish do, and sometimes Accenture supports them. Last year, when we asked the people here what they wanted out of a career, 82% said that they wanted a career that helped people in society, but oftentimes they didn't find it that easy to tie a career in STEM to that. But there's also evidence that when you do tie it to STEM, that the numbers really increase. For example, at Harvey Mudd College in the US, in 2008, they were in line with the US average of only 16% women in computer science undergraduates. But in 2008, they decided to actually start marketing the course in a way that would be attractive to potential female candidates. And one of the main things they did was actually explicitly tie where computer science can benefit society. And from the years from 2008 till now, the figure has grown, and it's actually over 50% today of females in computer science degrees there. So what I'm going to do on that note is I'm going to tell you a little bit about a few careers where, specifically in AI and analytics, where people are changing the world for the better. So in healthcare, sepsis is the third biggest cause of death worldwide, and actually in hospitals is the top killer. But actually the treatment path, even for experienced doctors, isn't always clear. So 3 researchers from Imperial College last year tested out a method called reinforcement learning, an AI method, looking at the historic data of when sepsis occurred and what treatment was picked, and how quickly the people got better or didn't get better, and they actually found it was actually more accurate than doctors on average, and it's now being trialed with the doctors to see if they can improve their outcomes. Okay, there's another example here where deep learning is being used, another AI algorithm, to actually help diagnose people with diabetic retinopathy. So basically, it's looking at pictures of the eye. So you may remember in 2012, the Google Cat experiment, where researchers in Google fed a deep learning algorithm that millions of labeled photographs on the internet, and it was able then to work out itself what a cat was. So they used the same sort of technique here, and the deep learning algorithm was able to recognize eyes that had diabetic retinopathy. So again, this is actually being rolled out by Google, I think, in Africa, with doctors who can go out in the field, because actually there's mobile phones now where you can actually, the camera is able to look into the eye and the retina with an attachment, and they're actually able to use this in the field. So in terms of changing the world for the better, in terms of coping with natural disasters, so obviously, societies, governments, cities can't stop natural disasters, but actually preparing for them and managing very quickly afterwards, the aftermath really helps. And AI is really making strides in terms of helping countries and cities in this space. For example, using machine learning to predict earthquakes. Machine learning is an AI technique where basically the system can learn and get smarter based on experience without being explicitly programmed. So in both of these examples, both for hurricanes and for earthquakes, they use a lot of historic data with the outcomes to basically train a model to work out what's going to happen next today. Another area is in terms of feeding the world. So currently, about half of the food produced in the world, or 2 billion tons a year, is wasted. And actually, at the same time, about 140 million people in 50 countries are going hungry. And there's going to be 2 billion more people in the world by 2050. So it's really important that we can do more with less. And actually, data-driven agriculture is really helping with that. And in this experiment by Microsoft, by using data-driven agriculture, so helping the farmers know exactly what seeds to plant, when to plant them, when to water, when to put on pesticides, when there's any sign of disease in their plants, they actually were able to increase production by 45% and reduce water consumption by 35%. But then there's actually new businesses, you can't read that, but one called AeroFarm in the States, where they're actually saying, actually, we won't grow outside, we'll grow inside using an AI method called hydroponics. So actually, they have their big factory or warehouses, they're using old warehouses in New Jersey next to New York. So it means they don't have to transport the food very far. And they grow under grow lights and water full of nutrients. And they actually they produce hundreds of times more for the same space. They don't need pesticides, they use less water, and they're able to grow 365 days a year. So in the last year, a lot of big forums like the World Economic Forums and universities like Columbia University are actually putting out reports on how AI can help save the planet. So they include things I talked about there, but also sustainable energy, sustainable cities, saving our oceans. So if you're interested in these, if you just Google how can AI save the planet, all of these reports come up, and and we're really at the beginning of something. Like, these methods are only really in the last 3 to 5 years are being used in full in production in companies. So actually, all of this stuff is sort of brand new now. So actually, so the next thing I'm going to show you is a video which I think encapsulates a lot of this.
Human rights situation often deteriorate very quickly, and the faster we can get the information and we can react to the situation, it can be a real game changer.
New technologies are advancing so rapidly, and technology companies can advise us on how best to use those technologies to protect and promote human rights.
Our objective is automatic damage mapping because after the disaster, the government needs the damage map to carry out the effective rescue. If we can save the time to grasp the ground damage information, we are able to save a lot of life and facilities.
In a new partnership with the World Bank, United Nations, and tech industry partners, we'll be better able to predict when and where famine will occur.
Operation Smile's vision really sinks in with what I feel is a fundamental human right.
What the volunteers do for the children may seem like a small thing, but they're able to change the lives of the families forever.
We're creating a chatbot-based experience for refugees coming out of the Syria conflict. The purpose is to have displaced youth find a way to discover and access learning materials so you can engage directly with the course content.
It's just the beginning of the impact that we hope to have with the tools at our disposal.
So I've been telling you a bit about globally and the types of careers globally that we see out there that can change the world for the better. And actually in that video, that chatbot for refugees was actually developed by a team in UCD here in Ireland. But now I'm going to go local and I'm going to introduce you to 3 young women I work with who are going to tell you a little bit about why they chose their degree in STEM and how in their careers to date they've been able to help people in society.
I picked computer science, and what led me to pick a degree so focused on computers was because growing up I saw them everywhere around me, and that curiosity of trying to figure out how they worked and what was involved in creating software really drove me to pick this degree. Being a software engineer has enabled me to work on a lot of projects that empower people that are somewhat overlooked in society. So that involves coming up with problems or figuring out what affects them in day-to-day life or in their businesses, coming up with then solutions and then building that from the ground up and delivering it to them.
So in college, I studied bachelor's in bioinformatics, which is basically a lot of the different biology subjects with computer sciences, data science, and machine learning. So in my current day-to-day job with Accenture, I help a lot of different pharmaceutical clients who are coming over to understand their pharmaceutical data and how they can improve their drug discovery process. I like drug discovery, that is my background in, and I can try to help the society and help them make drugs much better for the patients.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something that interested me, and physics was my favourite subject. I got interested in astronomy while I was in college because I just loved learning about how the universe works, and doing those kind of experiments, you're taking a lot of data and trying to make sense of it, and you do the same kind of thing working as a data scientist. Currently I'm working on a project which uses data science to monitor coral reefs. Coral reefs have been massively affected by climate change in the last few years, so working on that project has been super meaningful to me to know that I'm making a difference.
So hopefully I've given you a feel for how careers in AI and analytics can really help to make society better and help people. But you don't have to just take my word for it. Karat, Kamala, and Aoife are actually in the Accenture stand that you'll just be going in past. I think it's in P3 after this. So please, they're there to answer any questions you guys have. So please ask them anything. They'd be more than keen to chat to you. Thank you very much.